Okay, so let's unpack something today that I think a lot of people get wrong, like fundamentally wrong.
Oh, definitely. It's a very common misconception.
Right. Because if you ask the average person, or honestly even a lot of doctors, how to measure male fertility, what is the very first thing they say?
Uh, Sperm count. Almost exclusively, it is always about the numbers.
Exactly. It's this whole army metaphor. Like, if you have enough troops, you just automatically win the battle.
Right, but the reality is way more complicated than that.
Which is where this gets really interesting. Because we have a stack of source material today that completely flips that script.
Yeah.
It turns out you can have a massive army, normal count, normal shape, normal swimming speed.
Yep.
And you can still lose the war because those troops are carrying defective blueprints.
That is a great way to put it. The defective blueprints. So what we are diving deep into today is a patient education guide from the Berkeley Center for Reproductive Wellness.
Which is fascinating stuff.
It really is. It incorporates insights associated with Mike Berkeley. And the core message here is that there is a hidden factor in male fertility, something called sperm DNA fragmentation.
DFI.
Right, DFI.
Yeah.
And this is not about how many sperm you have. It is about the structural integrity of the genetic code inside the sperm head.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We are going to explore optimizing sperm health and DNA integrity. And for anyone listening who thinks this is just about, getting pregnant.
Hold on, because it is much bigger than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this research suggests that high DNA fragmentation doesn't just stop conception. It is heavily linked to miscarriage and health outcomes after fertilization.
Precisely. It is about the quality of the genetic payload. You can deliver the package, but if the contents inside are broken, it really doesn't matter.
So we've got a roadmap for you today. We are going to look at the biology of how sperm age, which, frankly, was total news to me.
It surprises a lot of people.
Yeah. And then we'll cover the villain of the story, which is something called oxidative stress. Plus, the surprising truth about how often men should actually be ejaculating.
Yes, the use it or lose it dynamic.
Right. And finally, we will get into the specific fixes, like lifestyle changes, antioxidants, and acupuncture.
And I really want to emphasize that surprising truth part regarding ejaculation, because the data we have here on abstinence intervals directly contradicts what men have been told for decades.
Oh, I cannot wait to get into that. But let's start with the biology first, because I think most people assume sperm are just, they're made and then they're ready to go.
Like a conveyor belt that's just always running.
Yeah, exactly. But there is a very specific timeline, isn't there?
There is a very rigid timeline. Sperm production, which is called spermatogenesis, is a long process. It takes approximately 70 to 90 days for a sperm cell to be created in the testicles.
So 3 months, basically a full fiscal quarter.
It's exactly a fiscal quarter. And that matters immensely because it means what a man does today, the fever he has, the stress he is under, the cigarette he smokes, that affects the sperm he is using 3 months from now.
So it's a lagging indicator.
It is entirely a lagging indicator.
But it's not just the production part, it's the storage. This is the part that really clicked for me when I was reading the source.
Right, because once sperm are made in the testicles, they don't just immediately leave the body. They move into a structure called the epididymis.
Which is?
Think of it as a long coiled tube that sits right behind the testicle. It acts as a storage facility.
Okay, analogy time. If the testicle's the factory, the epididymis is the warehouse.
Yes, the warehouse. But here is the major problem with this warehouse. It is not perfectly climate controlled, and the inventory has a very distinct expiration date.
Oh, so it goes bad.
It does. If sperm sit in the epididymis for too long, they don't just happily hang out. They age, they accumulate stress. And most importantly, their DNA becomes incredibly fragile.
So inventory management is literally key here. You can't just leave the stock on the shelf gathering dust.
You really can't. And this leads us to the mechanism of how they actually get damaged in that warehouse. The source material identifies a primary villain here.
Oxidative stress, or ROS.
Reactive oxygen species.
Which sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. Or maybe a hazardous waste label.
It does sound intimidating, but it is a very natural biological byproduct. ROS are just unstable oxygen molecules produced by your body's normal metabolism.
We all have them.
We all have them. And in small amounts, they're actually necessary. They help with certain cellular signals and immune functions.
But too much is bad.
Too much is highly destructive. And this is where the chemistry gets fascinating. These unstable molecules are missing an electron.
Okay.
And in nature, everything desperately wants to be balanced. So these ROS molecules tear around the body, trying to steal electrons from other cells just to stabilize themselves.
Wow. So it's basically biological theft.
It is literal biological theft. And when they steal an electron from a cell membrane or a DNA strand, it causes damage. We call this oxidation. It's the exact same process that turns a cut apple brown on your counter.
Or makes iron rust.
Yes.
So it's biological rust. I like that. But wait, why are sperms so bad at fighting this off? Usually our cells can defend themselves against this stuff, right?
They can. But sperm are uniquely vulnerable to this rusting process for 3 very specific reasons outlined in the guide. First, their outer membrane is made of polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Like fat.
Exactly. Think of a stick of butter. It goes rancid very easily when it's exposed to air. The sperm membrane oxidizes just as easily.
Okay, that's reason 1. What's the second?
Second, the sperm cell itself has very minimal antioxidant protection inside. It travels extremely light. It relies almost entirely on the surrounding seminal fluid to protect it.
Because it needs to swim fast. It drops all the extra baggage.
Exactly. And the third reason is the most critical one. And it is honestly a bit of a biological design flaw. Once a sperm cell is mature, it loses the cytoplasmic machinery required to repair its own DNA.
Oh, wow. So if I cut my skin cells repair. If a liver cell gets damaged, it fixes itself.
Right.
But if a sperm cell's DNA gets snapped by oxidative stress,
It stays snapped. It has absolutely no way to fix the break.
that is wild.
It is. So if you have high oxidative stress, which can be caused by lifestyle, heat, or just stagnation in that epididymis warehouse, those ROS molecules attack the membrane. That kills the motility.
It's out swimming.
Yep. And then the ROS penetrate the nucleus and literally break the strands of DNA.
That is a terrifying image. But it actually sets the stage perfectly for the next section. Because if the problem is that sperm are sitting in the warehouse getting attacked by biological rust, then the solution seems pretty obvious, right? Clear the warehouse.
Exactly. Clear the warehouse. And this brings us right to the use it or lose it dynamic.
Okay, let's bust this myth right now. Because I feel like everyone, and I mean everyone, has heard the advice. If you are trying to conceive, save it up. Wait a week so you have a huge sperm count.
That is the saving up myth. And according to this source and the broader scientific consensus right now, it is entirely detrimental to DNA integrity.
Okay, walk us through the data on this. What actually happens when you wait?
The source cites a lot of studies, including some really foundational work by Gosalves and colleagues, looking at abstinence periods. When a man abstains for long periods, specifically 7 days or more, we see a few things happen. Now, yes, the count goes up.
The army gets bigger?
The army gets bigger. But the soldiers are sick. Oxidative stress spikes because they have just been sitting in that hostile warehouse environment. And consequently, DNA fragmentation increases significantly. You are essentially accumulating a large volume of older, highly damaged sperm.
So you're deploying a massive force, but they are all wounded.
Precisely. Now, compare that to short abstinence, 1 to 3 days. The data shows this is associated with lower DNA fragmentation, lower oxidative stress, and actually improved motility. The sperm are just fresher.
This makes so much sense with the warehouse analogy. You want the inventory that just came off the assembly line, not the stuff that's been sitting in the back gathering rust for a month.
Correct. And the source gives very practical recommendations based on this. For general optimization, if a couple is just starting out trying to conceive, the general advice is to ejaculate every 2 to 3 days.
And what if someone already knows they have high DNA fragmentation? Like, say they've actually had the test done.
Then the protocol is even more aggressive. The guide suggests daily or every other day. You want to keep that turnover as high as possible to prevent the ROS from having any time to damage the DNA.
That is a massive shift from the save-it-up mentality. But wait, even for IVF, I know clinics sometimes have strict rules about abstaining before providing a sample.
Yes, even for IVF. Though clinic practices are slowly changing. The source notes that typically 1 to 3 days is optimal for IVF collection now. Some clinics are even moving to shorter windows, like just 24 hours, for men with known high fragmentation.
Wow. And if you're trying naturally?
Every 1 to 2 days during the fertile window.
So frequency is literally a tool. It's a biological lever you can pull to improve quality.
It is the simplest and most immediate way to lower the oxidative load on sperm. It costs absolutely nothing, and it works.
Okay, I want to pivot a bit to the so what of all this. We keep saying DNA fragmentation, or DFI. and we defined it as breaks in the genetic ladder. But what does that actually look like in real life? Why should the listener care if their DFI is 10% or 30%?
Because the stakes are incredibly high. We often think of fertility as binary, you are either pregnant or not pregnant, but high DFI affects the entire reproductive continuum.
Right. The source mentions it's not just about fertilization.
It starts there. High DFI definitely reduces fertilization rates, but let's say fertilization does happen. The egg has actually repaired some of the damage. Because the egg is amazing and can do that to an extent.
Wait, the egg has a repair kit.
It does. It has repair enzymes, but it is limited. If the damage in the sperm DNA is too severe, the repair fails. And then the embryo develops slower. It has lower blastocyst formation rates.
And then there's the miscarriage risk.
Yes. This is the hardest part to hear, but it is so vital. There is a strong, proven association between damaged paternal DNA and recurrent pregnancy loss. The source references multiple studies linking high DFI to early miscarriage.
But why is that? If the egg fertilizes, why does it fail later on?
This is a really fascinating bit of biology. For the first few days, the embryo runs largely on the mother's cellular machinery. But right around day 3, something called embryonic genome activation happens. The embryo has to switch on its own DNA, which is the combination of mom and dad.
And it has to boot up its own operating system.
Exactly. It's booting up. And if the father's contribution to that code is shredded, the boot up fails, the construction of the placenta fails, and the pregnancy simply isn't viable.
That is heavy, but it is so important to talk about because I think a lot of times in recurrent miscarriage, the focus is entirely on the female partner.
Almost exclusively. It's always, is it her uterus? Is it her hormones? And this source is loudly saying, look at the sperm DNA. It plays a massive role in whether that pregnancy holds.
And there's a note here about ICSI, that's the IVF procedure, where they inject a single sperm directly into the egg, right?
Yeah.
People just assume that fixes everything because you are forcing fertilization to happen.
It fixes motility issues.
Yeah.
If the sperm cannot swim, you can pick it up with a needle and put it in the egg. But the source is very clear on this. ICSI does not fully eliminate the impact of DNA damage.
Because the needle doesn't fix the broken genetic ladder.
Exactly. If you inject a sperm with broken DNA, you still have all the risks of poor embryo development and miscarriage.
So you really cannot bypass biology entirely. Let's talk numbers quickly for our listeners. If someone goes to get this test, what are they looking for?
The typical lab ranges mentioned in the guide are pretty straightforward. Under 15% DFI is considered low. That is good. You want low fragmentation. 15 to 25% is moderate. That's when you start paying attention. And anything over 25 to 30% is considered elevated or problematic.
Okay, so we know the villain, which is oxidative stress. We know the mechanism, which is ejaculation frequency. And we know the stakes, which are miscarriage and embryo health. Now let's talk defense. We need some armor.
We do, because since the sperm cannot repair themselves, the body needs to neutralize that oxidative stress before it ever causes damage. This is where antioxidants come in.
The source lists a very specific cocktail of nutrients. It's not just, hey, eat a healthy diet. What is on the menu?
It is a robust, targeted list. You have vitamin C and vitamin E. Those are the classics. They are scavengers that physically mop up the ROS in the system. Then you have coenzyme Q10.
CoQ10. I feel like I see that everywhere in wellness right now.
It is huge. It's critical for mitochondrial energy, which powers the cell, and it offers great protection. Then zinc and selenium are critical structural components for actual sperm production. And then there are two more specialized ones mentioned, N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, and L-carnitine.
NAC keeps popping up in longevity research too.
Yes. It is a precursor to glutathione, which is essentially the body's master antioxidant. So taking NAC actually helps your body build its own internal defense system. And L-carnitine transports fatty acids to be burned for energy, which is crucial for how well the sperm can swim.
So it is all about energy and defense.
Exactly. And meta-analyses suggest that this kind of targeted antioxidant therapy really can improve sperm parameters, but there is a big caveat in the source. You cannot just pop a pill and ignore the rest of your life.
Right, the lifestyle factors. You cannot out-supplement a bad lifestyle.
You really can't. The guide lists the standard offenders. Smoking and limiting alcohol are absolute non-negotiables if you are dealing with DNA fragmentation. Smoking is basically just inhaling oxidative stress. You are flooding your system with free radicals.
What about stress?
Yeah.
Like mental stress?
Yeah.
Work, life, the stress of dealing with infertility itself.
This is where the mind-body connection becomes literal biological chemistry. Chronic stress raises cortisol. High cortisol does two terrible things for fertility. It inhibits testosterone production, and it increases systemic oxidative stress. So if you are chronically stressed out, you are creating a biological loop that actively worsens sperm quality.
That is a vicious cycle.
It really is. The source mentions that getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep and doing moderate exercise are key to breaking that cycle. You have to lower the cortisol to lower the rest.
I also noticed a section in the guide on age. We always hear about the biological clock for women. Do men have one too?
They absolutely do. It just ticks a little differently. Men don't run out of sperm the way women run out of eggs. But as men age, specifically over 40, the machinery gets a lot less efficient.
The factory gets rusty.
The factory gets rusty, and the quality control department gets lazy. Oxidative stress tends to increase naturally with age, and the body's natural antioxidant defenses decline. So for men over 40, the recommendation is that they benefit even more from frequent ejaculation and antioxidant support. They really need that extra help to keep the DNA integrity high.
Okay, so that covers the lifestyle and the supplement side. Now, I want to get to the part of the source material that might be totally new to some people. The Berkeley Center specializes in this, acupuncture.
Right.
Now, I think some listeners might view acupuncture as just, relaxation. Oh, it helps me chill out. But the source breaks this down into very specific biological mechanisms regarding sperm.
Yes, this isn't just about feeling good or getting a placebo effect. The guide outlines 4 distinct ways acupuncture supports DNA integrity based on actual physiological changes.
Let's go through them. Mechanism number 1.
Testicular blood flow. This is crucial. The testicles have very fine, tortuous blood vessels. We call it microcirculation. Acupuncture has been shown to physically enhance this blood flow.
Why does that matter so much?
Think about the factory analogy again. If you have bad roads leading to the factory, you cannot get raw materials in, like oxygen and nutrients, and you cannot get the garbage out, like waste products and CO2. If blood flow is poor, the testicles become a hypoxic, toxic environment. Better flow means a cleaner environment for spermatogenesis.
Okay, that's plumbing. Simple enough. Mechanism number 2.
Reducing oxidative stress directly. The source cites studies where acupuncture was associated with lower inflammatory markers and improved antioxidant activity in the blood. It essentially helps the body fight the rust on a systemic level.
Interesting. So it boosts the immune system's own regulation. What is number 3?
Nervous system regulation. And this ties right back to that cortisol loop we just discussed. Acupuncture actively engages the parasympathetic nervous system.
For rest and digest mode.
Exactly. Most of us live our lives in fight or flight, the sympathetic mode. When acupuncture shifts the body out of that, you lower cortisol. And when you lower cortisol, you lower the systemic oxidative load. It is a physiological reset.
And the 4th mechanism.
Hormonal modulation. It helps to regulate FSH, LH, and testosterone. These are the signal hormones that tell the testicles what to do. Balanced signals mean much more efficient production.
So it is working on blood flow, inflammation, stress hormones, and reproductive hormones all at once.
Yeah.
It's a very multi-pronged approach.
It is. But here is a critical part to remember. And honestly, if you take one thing away from the intervention side of this deep dive, let it be this. The timeline.
Right. Back to the 70 to 90 days.
You cannot do one acupuncture session and expect better sperm the next day. You cannot take vitamins for a week and expect a miracle. The source is very specific about this. Because the production cycle is roughly 3 months, most treatment protocols recommend 12 weeks of consistent therapy.
You are treating the new batch.
You are treating the stem cells that are starting the process today. So that 3 months from now, the sperm that are ejaculated are of much higher quality. It requires patience.
That really seems to be the overarching theme here. Patience, but also consistency. It is not a quick fix. It is a systemic fix.
Absolutely. There are no shortcuts in cell division.
So let's wrap this up with a summary action plan for the listener. If someone, or their partner, is worried about sperm health, what is the checklist based on this source?
Let's break it down into 4 straightforward steps. Number 1, keep the system moving. The saving up myth is dead. Ejaculate every 2 to 3 days generally, or even daily or every other day if you know you have high DNA fragmentation. Keep the inventory fresh.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2, don't ignore the silent damage of oxidative stress. Use the antioxidant support listed in the guide. Vitamin C, E, CoQ10, NAC, use them to neutralize the rust.
Number 3.
Lifestyle is non-negotiable. Stop smoking, limit your alcohol, and actively manage your stress because cortisol is quite literally a sperm killer.
And the final step.
Number 4, consider the timeline. Give any intervention, whether it is supplements or acupuncture or diet changes, at least 3 months to actually work.
And consider acupuncture not just for the stress relief, but for that testicular blood flow and oxidative balance.
Correct. It is a powerful adjunct therapy.
You know, what stands out to me the most from this entire deep dive is just how manageable this feels. Like, DNA fragmentation sounds so scary and genetic and permanent, but the source basically says, no, this is highly dynamic.
Yeah, is the single biggest key takeaway. Male fertility is not a static number. It fluctuates constantly. And unlike some genetic conditions you were born with, like cystic fibrosis, DNA integrity in sperm is largely a reflection of the environment the sperm grew up in.
Right.
If you change the environment, you reduce the stress, you clear the pipes, you add antioxidants, you can genuinely change the outcome.
It really puts the power back in the patient's hands.
It does. It moves us from saying you have bad sperm to saying your sperm are currently under stress, let's fix the stress.
I love that perspective. And here's a thought I want to leave everyone with as we wrap up. We spend so much time and money on high-tech interventions, IVF, ICSI, genetic testing of embryos, which are all amazing scientific achievements.
Totally.
But this source suggests that the most critical engineering actually happens way before you ever get to the lab. It happens inside the body. It really makes you wonder, are we paying enough attention to the storage conditions and the shelf life of our DNA before we even try to conceive?
It is a question every prospective parent should absolutely be asking themselves.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We will see you on the next one.